Alcatraz. Just the name strikes fear. A prison fortress on an isolated island, surrounded by icy waters and swift, deadly currents. It was the one place where escape seemed impossible, but on one fateful night in 1962, three men did the unthinkable. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, vanished from their cells, leaving behind a trail of mystery and speculation that endures to this day. Did they drown in the cold, unforgiving waters of the San Francisco Bay? Or did they beat the odds and escape to freedom? This is the story of the most daring escape in Alcatraz history, a story that remains unsolved over 60 years later. To understand the significance of their escape, we first need to understand what life was like inside the notorious Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Opened in 1934, Alcatraz was designed to house the nation's most dangerous criminals, men who had a history of violence or escape from other prisons. Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and other infamous figures passed through its cell blocks. But it wasn't just a prison, it was a place of despair. Isolated on a rocky island, just 1.25 miles from San Francisco, the penitentiary was surrounded by treacherous waters. The currents of the San Francisco Bay were cold, swift, and unforgiving, making escape nearly impossible, or so it was thought. The prison cells were small, with only the barest of essentials. Inmates spent their days working under tight supervision, and their nights locked away in their cramped quarters. Alcatraz was a place designed to break men, both in body and spirit. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers were not ordinary inmates. They were determined, resourceful, and had something that most others did not: a plan. Frank Morris was no stranger to prison life. Born into poverty, he had spent much of his early life in and out of juvenile detention centers and prisons for various crimes. But Morris was more than a common criminal. He had an exceptional IQ of 133, making him a criminal mastermind. He had already escaped from several prisons before his arrival at Alcatraz, earning him a reputation as a serious flight risk. The Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, had a similarly troubled past. They grew up poor in Florida, resorting to robbing banks and other crimes to survive. They were skilled at breaking out of prisons, having escaped from multiple facilities before their transfer to Alcatraz. Their bond as brothers only strengthened their resolve to escape. When these three men ended up in neighboring cells in Alcatraz, they began to hatch a daring plan that would go down in history. For months, the trio worked in secret, preparing for their escape. Their cells were located in B Block, which provided them just enough isolation to work without drawing too much attention. Using stolen and scavenged materials, they fashioned homemade tools, spoons, hair clippers, and anything they could get their hands on. Slowly and meticulously, they began to chip away at the air vents in the back of their cells. Over time, these vents were enlarged enough for them to crawl through. But simply escaping their cells wasn't enough. Morris and the Anglins knew they needed to be clever. Above their cell block was a utility corridor, an unguarded area that they accessed by climbing through their widened vents. Here, they set up a workshop where they assembled a raft and life vests, made from over 50 raincoats that had been smuggled into the prison. For months, they worked every night, carefully removing the grates from their cells and replacing them with cardboard covers. They also sculpted dummy heads out of soap, toilet paper, and hair they collected from the prison barber shop. These dummies were placed in their beds at night, fooling the guards during routine checks. The plan was as brilliant as it was bold. Now, all they needed was the right moment. On the night of June 11, 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers put their plan into action. One by one, they crawled through the vents at the back of their cells and made their way to the utility corridor. From there, they climbed up the plumbing system to the roof of the prison. Despite the risk of being spotted by guards, they carefully maneuvered across the rooftop and descended the outer wall. Once outside, they quickly inflated their homemade raft and life vests. Their destination? The mainland, just over a mile away, but a journey across the freezing waters of the San Francisco Bay stood between them and freedom. As the night wore on, the guards were none the wiser. The dummy heads lay undisturbed in the beds, and it wasn't until the morning head count that the prison staff realized something was horribly wrong. The alarm was raised and a massive manhunt was launched. Helicopters, boats, and police scoured the bay and the surrounding areas, but there was no trace of Morris or the Anglin brothers. What happened to them after they left the island remains one of the greatest mysteries in American history. Authorities initially believed that the men drowned in the treacherous waters, their bodies pulled under by the strong currents. Pieces of their makeshift raft and personal belongings were found washed up on nearby Angel Island, further suggesting that their escape attempt had failed. However, not everyone was convinced. Over the years, there have been numerous reports of sightings and letters supposedly from the escapees. In 2013, a letter surfaced claiming to be from John Anglin, stating that he had survived the escape and lived in hiding for decades. Despite these claims, no conclusive evidence has ever been found to prove whether Morris and the Anglins survived or perished in the bay. The Alcatraz escape remains one of the most fascinating prison breaks in history. It has inspired books, documentaries, and films, including the famous Escape from Alcatraz starring Clint Eastwood. Despite the years that have passed, the mystery of what happened on that dark, foggy night continues to captivate the public's imagination. Was it a daring escape to freedom, or a tragic end in the cold waters of the bay? The fate of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers remains unsolved, leaving us to wonder, did they make it? Over 6 decades have passed since the great escape from Alcatraz, and yet, the story endures, the mystery lingers, and the questions remain unanswered. Whether Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers survived or not, their bold and calculated escape stands as a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring will to be free. In the end, it's not just about the escape, it's about the mystery that still grips us today. Will we ever know the truth? Only time will tell. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you enjoyed the content and want to explore more fascinating stories from around the world, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Global Documentaries channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know what topics you'd like to see next. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.